everybody's doing well. A little bit different of a setup today. Decided to go out of the office today instead of outside where I normally am. But what this does is if you guys have questions about specific stocks, I now am able to have my computer with me. Forgive if I'm looking over here. But then I can look things up. I can look at charts. I can see some information on the stocks and kind of look at the financials and stuff and answer some questions. So I'm sure everybody's well aware markets have been getting beat up pretty good the past few days. Um, I got a bet with my buddy Steve today. I kind of bet him $1 that I think the markets will reverse and turn around and close up. At least the Dow and the S&P. But with 2 hours left, I got a feeling that I'm losing that bet. But I guess we'll see. I just he and I like to make these goofy bets from time to time, and every now and then it's over a signed dollar, which is really special. So that was today's bet, but I'm looking pretty bad right now. Um, Either way, markets are getting beat up again. It feels a little overextended. Look at that. I hope you're doing well. Finally made it to it. Yeah, Lance, I'm glad you made it, buddy. But you have a good excuse as to why you didn't. You were on vacation, so a little bit jealous of that you got to go away. Yeah, yeah, I'm getting crushed on this bet. I mean, let's see. I now in the background I have all these things, and on the other lives I didn't. So it's kind of cool to be able to see all of it. But it looks like the Dow is still down 300 and something, and I bet on the Dow and the S&P. The Nasdaq was getting so beat up that I kind of let it be and figured I wouldn't put it out there. But the funny thing is, sorry, I know this has nothing to do with the markets. He has one signed bill of mine, and I won one from him, but I lost the bill. I'm guessing it was spent on something. Um, so I kind of said to him, I don't care if I lose another 200. I just want to win one back so I have one to be able to frame or something like that. But he likes to try to day trade, but we have discussions all the time about how hard, you know, there were such huge advantages on the floor and trading day trades from a computer. I personally think is near impossible. I'm sure some people have success at it, but I'm not real sure what they're able to do or what type of analytics they're using to be able to see the overselling and overbuying to get in and out. I think day trading is extremely difficult. As some of you know, I do like selling options, and I think that's a good strategy. But I like selling options in the way of like if I'm willing to buy a stock at a certain price, I like the idea of selling a put because you're getting paid to put in a resting bid essentially. Where to me, the risk on that is the stock goes through your price and then goes back up, and you end up not being long the stock where you wanted to buy it. I know there's legitimately other risks to it, but it's the way that I think about it since I left the floor. Um, when I traded on the floor, I had a much different attitude about it because the profits and losses were more like the day trading was legitimate, but also you'd be getting in and out of things, and an overall position in options was just an overall position in options, and you kind of had one sheet that would tell you what your overall deltas would and you were, and you just kind of manage it as a conglomerate. It wasn't like one trade or another. The longer I've been away from the floor, I kind of have a better understanding of how customers, which is now me, feel about options, where it almost is free money. Um, I, I know that sounds silly, um, but another narcissist with no money. Okay, sounds good. But if you're willing to put the order in and you want to buy the stock and you're getting paid to put that in, like to me it has gotten to the point that it feels like free money. Same with selling calls. But the way that I sell calls, excuse me, if I use it in my set it and forget it account that I've talked about, I sell stuff way out of the money, and similar to what I talked about with the put, that I'd be happy to get taken on that call. For example, I sold a call in Meta. It's a full year out. And if I remember correctly, because I don't watch the set it and forget it account, and it's not in the background, but I think it's a $1,400 strike price. So my real attitude is if it really gets that far, oh, okay. I guess I'll figure it out and go from there. Meta, Google, Amazon, like they're just companies I want to own forever. Now, I know Lance kind of asked about, I started talking about, I do plan to rotate into more dividend companies. And maybe I'll pull the list up too and talk about it a little bit and out of some of the growth stuff. And the reason for that is I'm getting older and I watch this guy. I don't know how many of you watch him as well, but Gen X Dividend Investor, and I like his channel and I like what he talks about. Part of what he discusses, he gets very sensitive to his account is a decent sized portfolio. And he doesn't want people feeling like he's showing off. And I totally get it. And it's a little bit of where I get sensitive to not want to discuss the portfolios or wealth or anything like that because people get annoyed and it looks like you're bragging when really you're just trying to have conversations. Like I like the conversations like Lance when we chat. I like bouncing ideas off of the viewers too, because those of us who are watching these channels and are into this stuff, like I'm sure a lot of you are doing the same type of research and enjoy markets. So you pay attention, and I might get good ideas from you, and vice versa. And I'm guessing Gen X feels the same way. And part of what he's talking about is he didn't inherit any money. He's never gotten real gifts or anything like that. He's just worked a job and consistently put away and saved, and the account has grown over probably a 30 or 40-year period. And when it finally got to the point that he was making more off of dividends than he was at work, then he left his job and now he lives off his dividends. And I think that might actually help people to see that you don't have to be born into having $1 zillion or things of that nature. That if you live below your means and you continue to put away, you'll build an account. And depending on what your goal is, like mine's similar to his, where I would want to be living off dividends. And that's why I like the channel. Um, so let's see. It's good to see the total portfolio to have something to say. Yeah, that's kind of what he talks about. Ar is he hopes that it encourages people to recognize that anybody can. It's just a matter of getting your mindset to it and really sticking with it. And I, I'd say I know from my own experience as well, but when I was young, I was really fortunate, and I promised my wife I would talk a little bit about the floor and trading and things like that because it's fun and it makes the live a little bit more interesting in some ways. But when I was a kid, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for a job. I'd interned at Merrill Lynch for a little bit when I was in college, just because I thought I knew I liked the markets. I thought maybe I would be a stockbroker. Well, what I learned working at Merrill Lynch is the last thing I wanted to do was become a stockbroker. It was nothing like what I thought. What I thought was you could study and learn about stocks and help people to invest in them, but that wasn't really what I saw, and I became very cynical about the industry as a whole because basically they don't do any research. Merrill Lynch puts on their desk the stocks that they need to start making cold calls and selling to their clients. Now, at least this was back in, I graduated in 1994. So this was probably 1992 or 1993 when I was a sophomore or junior. And they weren't able to use their brains. They were just salespeople, like calling people out, and generally, what they were marketing were super boring, like AT&T type stocks. And what I started to think, which goes along with my cynicalness, if that's even a word, is well, so then odds are Merrill Lynch's funds are trying to get out of this stuff while they're sending their salespeople to call clients and try to sell it to them. And I just learned I didn't want to be a stockbroker. So when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at all. And my brother, who's 4 years older, um, Okay, gooey. Um, he had graduated college 4 years earlier. He had moved out to Chicago and he was working at the exchange. And we have similar personalities. So he was kind of like, you might want to come out and check this out. It's pretty cool. Um, and since I didn't know what I wanted to do, yeah, I moved out to Chicago. I pretty much packed a bag and went out there not knowing anything. I said, "Well, I'll take a month or 2, I'll have some fun, and then I'll go to work." But not knowing anybody, and I'm not gonna go out to bars and stuff and just kinda randomly meet people. So within, like, 2 days of once I got my apartment set up, it was like, let me go down and find a job. So, and I think this stuff is pretty funny. By all means, if you guys have a question or want me to look at a stock, just chime in. I'm kind of keeping an eye and I'm watching the comments to see if anybody has anything. But so I go down and my brother had set up an interview with this company, Lynn Waldock. And Lynn Waldock is like the worst of the worst, but it's how you get your foot in the door, and the real goal is just to get down to the exchange and get a job. So I interview with this guy, Elliot, and he brings me down to the floor. And when I tell you, like, to me, eh, I think of it as like, Caesars used to, I don't know if they still do. It's funny, I live here, but I rarely go down to the strip. Used to have this walking sidewalk that would go into the casino from outside, and it would take you through like the sports book. Walking onto the floor the first time while I was doing the interview, to me, was probably like how people like get to like, I saw all the screens and the numbers and the people and the noise, and I was just like, "Rah!" Like, it was so cool to me. So we finished the interview, and Elliot says, like, "Well, do you think you'd like to work?" Which I assume means I got the job. And I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "Well, when can you start?" I'm like, Whenever." He's like, "Okay, well, can you come in tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Of course." And he goes, "Now, I wasn't super concerned about pay. Like I said, I just wanted to get my foot in the door because I knew once you got, like, at least in my brain, like, once I got down there, I'd figure it out. Like, it was where I wanted to be." So Elliot says to me, "We normally start people at $5 an hour for being a runner. And since you went to college, we'll start you at $5.50." So I still joke about that. Well, I guess my college degree made me 50 cents an hour. All those years of doing all that work, that's essentially what it made. And the reality is, if I could have skipped college and been down there 4 years earlier, it would have been really beneficial, because when computers came around, it changed the industry, and it was a really limited time to be able to have the opportunity. But part of the whole long-winded story was, difference between me and Gen X is I was a super young kid, and within a year I was trading, and I, I did really well, and I had super low expenses, so it just kind of was like a rocket ship to put me in a better position. So it's hard, like, when I see his videos, it really shows me that anybody can do it, because I get a little jaded that I think it's way tougher. Um, because I don't know that opportunities like that still exist. And I just feel really fortunate that I fell into it. Now, it messed me up in other ways. It was very hard afterwards to acclimate to the what I'll call the real world. Like, I remember computers came around, and slowly but surely you watched, like, the trades go from the pit. And I'll talk about it, it was fun. Um, to the computer. And originally, what would happen is the pit would be a tighter market, if everybody understands what that means. Like, so we traded currencies, and I was in the yen pit, which was typically 4 digits long. And when you would quote the market, it's just the last digit. So maybe it would be 3 bit at 5, but we all understood the 3 digits beforehand were where the market was trading. And if you got thrown off, you just look at the screen and see where you're trading. Um, but we would always be about 2 ticks wide. And the computer, like, some people would have these handhelds standing in the pit, and it might be 10 points wide. Well, over maybe the time frame of a year, year and a half, it got to the point where that computer screen was like they changed from 1 point to half points because they were making half point markets while we were still 2 points wide. And the trades were no longer coming into the pit and they were going to the guys on the handhelds before it was coming to the pit. And you watch that slowly change over the year, and eventually there was just like the floor doesn't really exist. I mean, uh, even on CNBC to this day, sometimes they show clips from the floor, and it's from when I used to trade down there. I mean, I talked in last live about Bryce. He's in the video along with some of the guys who I used to work with. So it's kind of funny that they'll shoot down to the floor and it'll kind of look like it's a live video, but it's from close to 30 years ago. It's probably 20. Yeah, it probably is 30 years ago. So either way, I do feel like it gave me quite a jump, and then I was fortunate enough to save most of it, instead of a lot of my friends pissed the money away or whatever they did, and as that changed, it became really hard to acclimate. So I remember after kind of not knowing what I wanted to do and hanging out with the other traders and running around like idiots and whatever we used to do, um, and starting to apply for jobs. And I just figured I'd want to be in finance, so I started applying to you know investment companies. But the background of trading on the floor, the funny thing is I think they kind of wouldn't mind it now because of the history and stuff. But back then they could care like it was the wrong type of education's not the word, but it was the wrong thing. Like that was not what they wanted when they were looking to hire people. They wanted people that were more just had a computer knowledge and they had certain algorithms they would use on the buy side and the sell side. And I remember like I had years of experience, but when I would get asked questions, I had no idea what they were even talking about because they'd be like, well, were you a buy side trader or a sell side trader? And I'm like, well, we traded whichever way the market was going. Like, but what they were talking about is the way that the computer programs worked, and I didn't really understand them. Well, eventually I did get offered a job, and it was a little under 50 grand a year, and that's when I realized how much trouble I was in, because I remember like, and I didn't say it to the interviewer or anything else, and I just kind of said I'll think about it and let you know. But to be such a snob or so spoiled as a kid, I just remember thinking, wait, for a whole year? Like, it didn't even make sense to me that you'd get maybe, like, a week or 2 off of work, and that was a year worth of salary, because the swings we were having, I mean, it was very a tough transformation. So ever since, like as much as I've wanted to just have a regular job, it's been very tough. Also, it's hard for me to listen to a boss. So in some ways, it was the greatest thing ever. In other ways, if I didn't do it, maybe I would just have had a normal, steady job and been perfectly thrilled about that, which would be cool too. But we all have our past. So let's see. Are you so? Wheat Candle is asking Adam, are you still in United Health and how would it do in a recession? I notice it's under its weekly and daily 30-day moving average. Well, it's funny you ask. I actually bought a little more today. I saw it drop. I don't know. I could take a look. I don't know where it is exactly now. Um, and I had that same conversation with my buddy Steve about how I thought, oh yeah, it's 313. I saw it get down to 310, and I I think everything was overdone today. It's kind of why I made the bet for the dollar with my buddy. Is nobody knows where the market's going to go. And I'll do my little disclaimer right now just because the timing's good. Please, I am not a financial advisor. You shouldn't listen to me or anybody else for financial decisions. You need to do your own research and reach out to your financial planner. I do this because I like it, which I think you all know, and it's entertainment purposes only. But I added on to United Health today, but I did it in my trading account. I don't plan to hold it forever. But They have good contracts in place with a lot of companies. Unless we go into a monstrous recession, which we might be, this is where I struggle too. Like, there are a lot of things out there that make a lot of sense that the analysts are not wrong about that are going on. But this feels like another scare to me. I don't think we're at the end yet. And I was nervous enough as well that sometimes I use my emotions and try to do the opposite of it. And United Health was one that I looked at today as well. I don't tend to pay too close attention, to be fair, about when things get above or below their moving averages. I should, because I do like charts, but I'll look at support areas and things like that more than anything else. And the reason I like United Health is they're a money machine. The only thing that would impact them is if the recession was so bad that people were losing so many jobs that they were getting less subscriptions through the companies that they have contracts with. But part of what I liked about United Healthcare originally when it was collapsing is despite the news being bad, I don't think that's going to impact anybody who has an account and gets their health care through them. I don't think the MGM. Now, I don't know if MGM gets their health care through United Health, so forget. But I don't think that MGM is changing their policy because of what was going on in the news. So whatever policies they had in place, whatever clients they had, I just didn't see that really changing. And feel the same way even if we went through a recession. So I think they're in a really good position to weather any storm of some sort of recession. Now, I do also believe that if things got really bad and people were losing jobs and there were less people working, that that does mean that there might be less contracts, not the contract because they'd have the contract with the company, but less individuals that were signed up for the program. So maybe it would discount how many people were paying, but I still think they would weather the storm pretty well. I think they're a great company, and my favorite, which I think a lot of is, you know, bad news, great companies, and they're not really in the news anymore. And between the politicians buying it, between the insiders buying it, and everything, and even Berkshire buying it, I, I kind of felt like some of the people must have some indication that the things going on with the Department of Justice are gonna, I don't want to say disappear, but aren't going to be so detrimental that it really punishes the company to the point that the stock's going to go down a whole ton. Now, I know that's a whole long answer, but I really like United Health. I have a pretty good position in it already, and it's kind of one of those companies that I want to own a bunch of it. Um, and I have to be careful of that stuff because I tend to overdo it sometimes, and I'll get really pointy or hyper focused on a few individual stocks. So good one to ask me about because yes, I still love United Health. I don't plan to. Do I consider? So Lance is asking, do I consider them the best of the best? I, they're the biggest, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know in healthcare about best or worst. Um, but they sure seem to dominate from what I understand. Like, yeah, no, I understood you weren't asking the best overall, but they're the biggest, right? So I assume they are. And who else? Like, what Cardinal? And I don't know Blue Cross Blue Shield. Like, I don't even know if that's a public company. I haven't looked into them too much. And I got to tell you, to be perfectly honest, I, I didn't really invest in healthcare companies prior to them having all that negative news. That was the first thing that kind of picked my head up to start looking into it. I mean, I had looked at Cardinal Health probably 20 years ago and missed, like, when I would peek at it from time to time, it was like, I'd bought it and gotten out and made a tiny bit and then it moved a whole ton. But I only opened my eyes to looking at healthcare other than the drug manufacturers. Like I like Bristol Myers and Pfizer and things like that. Um, but I really only started looking at them when all the negative news. It started when the CEO got shot. Like I get really opinionated. AR, I'll read that and answer the question in a second. But thank you for asking. Um, but but the funny thing is, I, I got in because or paid attention because I thought that was so atrocious. It doesn't matter to me whether you agree or disagree or think it was justified or not. Like I don't think killing somebody is okay, no matter what's going on. So I started getting really opinionated and paying attention to what was going on. And what I noticed, and the reason it got on my radar was people wanted the stock to do poorly, which to me starts to put up a little light bulb of paying attention because if people want to see it doing badly, they're going to push it further down than it should go, is the way that I look at it. So then when they had a rough quarter, the CEO left, and then I think another CEO left, and all those things going on in the Department of Justice and everything, it just seemed like this big storm coming on that I saw as opportunity. But so let me read. Forgive my pointing. I use my phone. So AR, I'm a boring ETF investor who just say invests in the S&P and Nasdaq, so I don't lose any sleep. What do you think about people? I, I've done videos about that. That I now I don't know if the ones you're in are VOO and QQQ or QQQM or SPY, but I've told my wife and my son to memorize VOO and QQQM and not to worry about anything else. And if I get run over by a bus, sell everything and put 60 or 70% into VOO and the rest in the QQQM and don't even worry about it. My wife is not interested in this stuff. I don't know. My son's only 14, so I don't know if he will be in time. And yeah, I think if somebody doesn't want to do the research, like ETFs are incredible and much better than the mutual funds and the things that I grew up with because VOO is just owning the S&P 500 and QQQM is just owning the Nasdaq, and I think that is an unbelievable opportunity for people with negligible costs to be able to be invested in the market, as I would say. So I've kind of had them memorize that stuff, and I think that's the best, to be honest. I like researching, and I probably don't beat the S&P 500 most of the time, but I still, whether it's ego or whatever else, want to do it that way and find some sick enjoyment out of it. The other thing is, over the years, I talk about this a little bit in my set it and forget it account. I actually, this will sound really stupid, try to underperform a bit because if there's a correction, there'll be a correction, and the S&P will get hurt as well as the QQs. And I try to mix some things in the account that are a little protectionary so that if there's a correction, I'm going to be not falling as fast. But it also does mean when the markets go up at this point, my account is not going to grow as quickly as the Qs or the S&P. So, but yes, um, David, I get it. I know. So he's saying Trump attacked the insurance industry a few days ago, and it puts him on the fence with investing in United Health. I don't blame you, and RFK and all the others. I just think I on an investment like United Health, at least for me personally, it's a very long term investment, and they're only going to be the administration for the next 3 years. Now, maybe they put policies in that go longer, but it tends to be that when one administration goes out, another one comes in, and maybe they change some things. And look, our healthcare industry needs some fixing, so I don't stay on tune enough about it to know exactly what they're doing and what's going on. But one of the things that I love when I go to other countries is their healthcare makes way more sense. I mean, My guy, oh, look, saw my video on going to China. So this will be a good opportunity. I'll talk a little about that stuff too. So a few years back, we went to Malaysia, and I'd seen some videos on doing these health screenings at the hospitals in Malaysia. And it, without insurance, they do everything from eyesight and hearing to EKG and blood work. I mean, you spend a whole day at the hospital, and it cost me $279 along with a consultation with the doctor at the end. That if I sat with her for 2, 3 hours, she would have sat and answered any questions I had. Like, it was amazing. And I was really floored. And one smart thing that they do is everything is at the hospital. So if you go to see your doctor and they need you to go see a specialist, they'll be like, hey, just go to the fourth floor, go to room blah, 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 put your name on the list, and they'll go see you and then come back down in a few hours when I can. With us, it makes no sense. Like, you see your doctor to see a specialist, and it might take a few weeks to get into your doctor. And then by the time you see the specialist, because that could take 2 months to get into their office before you can re see your original doctor to go over the information that the specialist said. And you have insurance that is very expensive. At least for me and my family, we pay close to, I want to say, like, it's not quite, but it's almost 1,500 a month for the three of us. And it was one of the least expensive options. So it just boggles my mind. Whereas you go there and it's way less expensive, and I didn't have insurance. Fast forward to this summer, since David's beginning to ask about some things in China, and I'll talk about the furniture too. And I wasn't feeling great when we were in China this trip, and I'd had COVID years and years ago, and in the back of my head, I was like, something's not right. Maybe it is. And my father-in-law and my wife took me to the hospital. Same type of experience. You go in, it took a little bit to get, they have these little ID cards. And since I'm not in their system, it took a little bit at the machine to get me an ID card. But I mean, a little bit meaning maybe it took us 15 minutes to get through their little thing. So I get the ID card. We go to reception. You give the ID card. They ask what's wrong. Say I have flu-like symptoms. They say okay. Within 3 minutes, they have me talking to a doctor. So no waiting 2 hours in the waiting room until somebody can see you. Same thing with the doctor. Explain what's going on. He goes, well, let's go get some blood work done and see what it is. So he goes, right around the corner is where you get the blood work. I go there. The person checking you in says, okay, well, give me your arm. Like, they get your information. So that takes all of 30 seconds. So it's not like they take your information, then you go sit down and wait for a nurse. Like, the guy who checks you in is the nurse, takes my blood right then and there. Says it could take up to an hour. You go, sit around, do whatever you do. They take a phone number, will text you when it's ready. 15 minutes later, we get the text right back in, talk to the doctor who says that I have COVID, goes over a couple of things. Now I'm like, oh, geez, I just got COVID in China. And I have all these American crazy thoughts going through my head. But no, it's just like here. Gives us a couple of prescriptions. And similarly, they do the prescriptions at the hospital. So you go to what the equivalent of the pharmacist is, give the prescription list. They had it ready in a few minutes. You pay for it and off you go. The entire thing couldn't have been but an hour. And again, no insurance, no nothing. And it was way less than what it would be in the US. Like, I think their goal is to make people healthy. And I think we have so many hands in the pot trying to make themselves rich that it's just a little different here. So every time I travel, one of the things that just floors me is the healthcare everywhere else. And we're supposed to have the best healthcare in the world. So it's really frustrating that as the place that's supposed to be the best, that I'm not so sure that we are. And I think things have shifted a bit where you can get great medicine in a lot, like, I think across all of Asia. I know people who will go to Mexico because it's less expensive there. And quite honestly, even here, I've had doctors from everywhere in the world, and some of the best ones are Indian or Mexican or Asian like. So I just don't know. And I think we used to have some of the best equipment, but now everywhere has it. So so Dave, I did want to answer. I saw you talking about um, you bought before pretty good quality and wood furnishings and somewhat cheaper even. Yeah, so that's exactly what we're going for. We went this summer, and I kept saying to my wife, like everywhere we went, and I'm not talking at some fancy hotel or anything, because she has like we would stay with family and stuff for half the trip, but even at like some, lack of better word, hole in the wall, fast foody. Theirs is not fast food like ours for anybody who's never been. So I don't want it to sound the wrong way. But some inexpensive noodle shop that I would look at the chairs and the lattice work and the doors and just be like, oh my God, the quality is incredible. Just all of their furniture and everything else is really well done, where ours is like press board. So it was kind of cool to see. And when we got home, we started talking about it, and our parents are kind enough to help and say, well, we'll help pay for some of it if you guys want to. So we're doing a trip back out. We're meeting her aunt and her uncle too, who also want to be looking for some furniture. And what's really cool is we're going to go to some furniture stores to kind of find the stuff we like. And then we're going to go to the actual factories where they're going to help. Like, I've taken all the measurements of the house and everything else. And my understanding is, like us, they can put it on computer screens, show you what it'll look like. And then we're not even paying the furniture store prices. We'll be able to go direct through the factory. So I'm very excited to see the process and if it's as cool as I think it'll be. So I guess we'll find out. Um, JS is asking my thoughts on Bitcoin, and I have a tough time. I am a Bitcoin believer. I will start with that. But that being said, there are a couple things that bother me. Now, I think similar to the markets, the way that it sold off and the fact that people are asking make me think it's probably a little overdone and maybe a really good opportunity. Not financial advice, really, but as much as I'm a believer, nothing would surprise me with Bitcoin. And I mean nothing. Like if it went to zero and ended up being a story to people in 100 years about tulip bulbs, just as similar as the story we've heard about the tulip bulb craze, that would not surprise me. And if it went to $10 million a coin, that would not surprise me either. There's no way for me to really have a valuation on it. It's just valued at what everybody kind of agrees it's worth. So nothing would shock me, but I am a believer in Bitcoin, but mainly because I'm a believer in that we're going to have a digital currency. I don't know if that'll happen in a year or 50 years or however long, but it only makes sense, and for all the negative reasons as much as the positive ones. I hate the concept of being like the original Running Man, where they might be able to shut off your digital currency if you have the wrong opinion about the wrong thing that disagrees with whatever. So I have a warped little paranoid bit of a mind, but I hope that's not the case. It also makes a lot of sense because it makes a lot of sense. It just, how smart would it be that anything that you pay for or anything else automatically has everything indoctrinated into the algorithm or into the program to be able to factor for taxes and whatever else, that way they shouldn't have to track you. It should be the a better way. Like they shouldn't care if it's something that you shouldn't be doing or not, because they're able to track it and properly take taxes from places that people might be avoiding currently or whatever else. And it would just make things quicker and smoother. Like I think you guys know, I owned a restaurant for a while, and things like credit cards and the fees that they cost. When I look at Solana, that you can move across wherever any amount of money and it costs less than a penny. And I think, geez, if somebody went into a restaurant and the fee to use crypto is less than a penny versus the 3% plus the charge for, like, if you're buying a soda for $1.99 and they're hitting the company for 40 cents for the swipe. It's not about the percentage, it's just they crush them. So I see lots of advantages to it. I see a lot of negative, but I do think it's inevitable. I think in time that I think cash will be illegal. And to re-talk about China, what's amazing is they're a cashless society. Like we were walking down the street in Shanghai, and I don't want the wrong idea given here either. There are barely any homeless people, but there was this woman who kind of went like this with a QR code to me, and I'm like, so I said to my father-in-law, I'm like, and he said, "Oh, that's how they ask for money." So even the people on the street, she has a QR code. They're not panhandling for cash. Everything's digital, and if you go to like a night market or whatever, it's not like there's any cash. It's all. It's so convenient. I mean, when you leave the house, you need a phone, nothing else. Even their ID and everything, like it's just on their phone. So it's super cool. Sorry, there are a couple. This is cool. Um, I know a couple of people in the yeah. So yeah, it looks like others have kind of looked in it too. I guess Lance has as well, and yeah, me too. I'm super excited to like. Uh, it's amazing. I don't even know if we're going for a long enough time. I thought we had plenty of time, but I'm worried that we have so much to get done and so like that the time's gonna fly by and it's gonna be like, oh crap, we didn't have the time we needed to get all the things we wanted to get. But I guess we'll see, and I'll try to post some of it. The thing is like I am so bad at the editing and the other stuff with this stuff. Like, I don't mind recording and I don't mind videoing and chatting and whatever else. But the reality is, if we're on the trip, I should just be videoing and then going back to the room and doing the editing. But I don't know how to do most of that stuff. I have one little thing that I use on my phone that can put those little pop ups that I put in on some of the videos. And it'll also do the, what's it called? The captions, but outside of that, I know some of these guys are so good at editing. I don't even know how to share the screens or put up little charts. Like sometimes I talk about something and I'd love to put the chart up in the corner or whatever. Now I have learned through my thing to share like picture in picture and a couple others. So every now and then, like I think I did one when my son was swimming and I can even like point and then I can, but what I worry about for the trip to China is I'm so bad at the editing that it'll be hard to actually show the process. So I'll talk about it some, and I'll talk about the markets. I might have a tough time doing the Tuesday live. Just the time difference is absurd. I mean, here, let me take a look. Like I want to say it's like a full day ahead. Time in China. So we're 11:40 right, yeah, they're 3:40 in the morning right now. So the concept of starting a live at 3 in the morning, like it might work if the first week I'm still jet lagged, but odds are it'll be tough. Um yeah, Tom, I don't know if you saw, like I figured I started putting stupid pictures of cute girls in the videos, figuring, typically sex sells, and I kind of figured if I put, I don't know if you're asking if I'm going to when I go to China, but the little program that I had, I started looking up and putting little like I put bikini picture or something, and I started putting those and figuring, hey, maybe people will want to watch if I put up little shots every now and then or something like that, because I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, most of the people researching the investment stuff, and I don't, maybe it's a, maybe I'm wrong, because I do see some women who do some of the videos as well, but I kind of figure there's more men than women watching the videos. But again, as I like, maybe that's not true. But I thought maybe they would enjoy seeing that instead of my little, goofy Chris Farley, I'm a moron emoji. Um, so I don't know. Funny, I promised my wife I would talk about the floor, and I got so distracted on all the other stuff, I didn't really talk about some of it. Um, so Irwin's asking, that's a good question. It seems like I mainly stick to large cap companies. Any reason for that? Uh, yeah, because I'm old and boring, and there's a little more security in it. I'm going to lose out on some of the upside for sure, versus some smaller companies. And I think your brain is a little bit limit. Like, I think there's only so many that a person can keep up with. Like, yes, you can give me any stock and I can punch it into E Trade or Yahoo Finance, look at a chart, see some numbers and anything else, and kind of give a quick off the cuff opinion. And I think a lot of people on YouTube will do that. But I think that you're limited on how how many companies you can really keep up with and have a decent feel for the markets with it. I think any more than 20 or 30 that your brain capacity just not even think 20 or 30 is a lot in some ways. I think your brain capacity is unable to have a really good brain fart. See? You can't even think of one thing to say. But to have a really good understanding or concept of where you think it's going, and you can hit it out of the ballpark with smaller companies, but you're taking on more risk. And I will do it with really small amounts of money. Like I talk about, so my big claim to fame this year is OKLO, that has I picked it up I think at $20 a share essentially, and it's done incredibly well. Well, yeah, but I have no good like I think the companies uh, like they could go out of business, and just because it's done well is just dumb luck. So I don't want to put like a really large bet on something that I don't know enough about. And I'm not super concerned about, I don't own this one, but I'm not super concerned about being wrong with Coca-Cola or Pepsi or something like that. Like there's enough people investing in it that I'm thinking that the price right now is probably pretty accurate to where it should be trading. So I don't worry too much about putting a decent bet on it. So you traded yen on the floor, but retail traders don't have any real access. Um, there are ETFs I notice that trade it, and you can. It's actually not that hard. You just have to do a little bit of research. I highly advise not to. The leverage is out of control, and l- look, as successful as I was when I was a kid, I was only successful because I was so stupid. Like, I had no idea the type of risk I was taking on. So you wield each contract in the end is 125,000. Well, it depends on where it's trading, but for lack of better explanation, is $125,000 worth of the currency. You need $2,500 to be able to trade that. Now, obviously, you need a little bit more because if it moves against you or whatever else. But so the amount of leverage that one people are using, and the reason is you're just getting in and out. It's not that you're buying or selling the yen. I mean, all day long, you're 2 bit at four, 3, 5, 5 set. You're just making markets all day, and you're trying to get in and out doing simple math. There's a little more to it, and the advantage is knowing who's who on the floor, which I talked about a little last week, and I'm happy to discuss again. But yes, there are companies like if you researched where to trade Forex, you absolutely can, but it is extremely difficult, and you better really have an idea. Like it works way different from off the floor versus scalping and trading in and out all day. And you better have a real opinion that you think a market is going to go a direction. And off the floor, I trade completely differently. Like I put a yen position on 2 or 3 years ago that I've been completely wrong on, but instead of trading it with the future, I asked them to do me a favor and I put up the cash to buy the yen and left it in the account. So the swings are like if you're actually putting up the money, the swings are minuscule. It's the opposite of trading on the floor. But I, you know, one or two contracts is a decent sized position since I left. And when I was on the floor, I mean, I was primarily trading fives and tens, but from time to time, I might have 50 contracts on or 100. I mean, like the idiocy and okay, good opportunity to tell a quick story. Let me make sure I'm okay. I'm not falling too far behind because my wife won't. I will tell you guys about the day I lost the most money that I had ever lost at the exchange or anywhere actually to this point. So we do all the things that you shouldn't do in trading. Everything they tell you to do about hold on to your winners, don't add on to losers on the floor. You're kind of doing the opposite, and that's how you make money. Like if you're buying something that keeps going lower, you just keep buying it to the point that you hope you get it low enough that it averages out and works out, which is kind of why I say stay away from it. But again, I was like 20 something years old, and nothing could, like, you think you're invincible and you can't lose and whatever else, so you just do dumb shit. Just worked out well. So generally, for the years that I traded the yen, you would sell the yen, which means you're buying dollars. And we were in a long term trend. Currencies tend to trend for 10 or 20 years, not for a year or two, where the yen was continuing to get weaker. So, I started learning that if I sold it, I generally made money. And selling and buying all day long, but leaning towards the sell side. So I had sold it and it was drifting higher, and I had sold some more and it drifted higher and I had sold some more. And the next thing I know, I'm probably short 30 or 40 contracts, which I just talked about was a really large position. Well, we started clicking higher or ticking higher, and we got through even, or what's often called the figure, which is the last two digits are a zero, which sometimes is a big number, and sometimes you hit some stops at that level. Well, as we tick through, what often happens with the guys who trade on the floor is they'll yell like "oh 01" or "oh 02" to push them on one to push the market through that level to see if they trigger some stops. Well, as we go 0-2 on one, or somebody yells it, Freddie Gelderman, who used to fill orders over there, yells, 0-5 on 300. Now, 300 contracts is a very large, that's probably like 30 or 50,000 stock shares. It's a very big order. Like typically, most are ones and twos and threes and fives. Anything over 10 or 20 is a very big order. So 300 is a huge order. And every now and then you have 1,000 or 2,000 share trades. But anyway, he goes 10 on 300, and Todd goes at a quarter, so at 25, and Freddie goes by 300, and I just yell, sell you 50, Todd. Just total reaction, like playing a sport or anything else. As the market starts to sell off, and one of the guys who fills orders is now offering 200 contracts at 15. And of course, I should have just turned around and bought out of my position there. Well, I'm sitting and waiting for it to go lower because I'm hoping to get back to even or be up a little bit of money. As y- you can see the orders coming in, you're not supposed to trade off of it. And some of the guys did, but some of us didn't. As I see Smith Barney's clerk, which is one of the guys who's on the headset who trades with New York, which they determine where our market is. Like New York is the yen against the dollar, or the dollar against the yen, and we're the yen against the dollar. We move inversely, but they're the real interbank market. So when they say I'm 20 bid, like we're 20 bid, we're going to be. It's not like our market makes us up, which is why I say knowing who's who and knowing what's going on, that really helps you to be able to be profitable as a floor trader. Well, Jim, or I don't know the clerk's name, but Mike, who's the trader, goes, Mike, we're 70 bid, we're 70 bid. And there's still Teddy offering the 200 at 15. And Mike kind of looks at me and I look at him and I know he's giving me the opportunity to buy them. But that, like, forgive me for being such a goody two shoes because I almost want to smack myself because I still envision this. It's amazing how 40 years later I can still see it so vividly, and I'll even have dreams about the floor still. And this is one of the ones that still sticks out. And I almost want to smack myself and be like, just freaking everybody else does it, just buy them. And Mike looks at me, and the thing is, to be fair to Mike, like he can't wait too long because they are like that is where the market is. And all the other bank traders are going to know that within the next couple seconds. So he kind of looks at me and I look at him and shrug my shoulders and he's like, buy them. I'm 70 bid. I lost six figures in less than 30 seconds. I mean, we were instantly 70 bid. And the scary thing is that, again, being a stupid kid and not even like it could have just kept going. Fortunately, it went up to like 80 or 90 and kind of sat around there. I finally just head down, walked off the floor, and counted how many I was still short and asked one of the order fillers, could you buy me, 93 contracts, and walked off and just dealt with it the next day. Now, the nice thing is, forgive my finger, I'm just trying to say follow up questions. Um, I lost the money. I had been doing well enough that it hurt. That was a legitimate, like that would take some time to make back. That wasn't a, oh, it's no big deal. That was the biggest loss by far. Most days was plus or minus 3,000 ish to give a rough idea. So this was absurd and would take a long time to make back. Um, but I'm going home and I'm feeling really down on myself, like really down. And there were oftentimes guys outside the exchange kind of begging. And there's a guy begging for money, and I'm about to walk past, and what goes through my head, and it turned like it- mentally, this was huge. I'm looking at him and I'm like, fuck, this guy's gonna sleep on the street tonight, and I'm going home to my apartment. I'm gonna have dinner. I'm gonna go to sleep, and I can wake up and come back tomorrow. uh, I gave the guy $100 and went home and didn't feel so bad. And that whole interaction and that recognition with him really got my head on straight, where I traded incredibly well over the next few months and made it back in a much shorter time than I would have if it was anyway. It was like this awful and amazing thing. So Tom's asking, how do you know how many contracts you can trade? You must be limited. No, you're not limited. It well, you can be now with computers. Like they'll set it up where you cannot have on bigger than a certain size. But back then it was yelling and screaming, it's the hand signals you see, and you'd get pieces of paper, and every 15 minutes a bell would come off and a clerk would come by, and you'd tear off the top and you'd hand her the card, and you'd stick the piece of paper in your pocket so you could kind of go through and see where you were, but you gave her the card. Well, there's a lot of trust because had I just put on 500 contracts and not given her the card, my firm doesn't know. Like it takes time for them to get the information and put it in. So there becomes these relationships where the firms have to trust the traders that they're not going to do anything they shouldn't be doing, because there's no way to really limit how many they put on. They can do almost anything. Now, what stops you is you don't want to go bankrupt, but I'll still go back to, I was just this idiot kid. I had no recognition of how crazy commodities could get. That was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to make what I made. And if I tried to do it now, I would not be successful because I'd be too worried about those swings. I'd be up and down $2 or $3,000 and super stressed and worried about my wife and my kid and our bills and all these other things that, like, at 23 years old, renting an apartment and no other expenses, and just, the world is at your feet. There was just no clue. So it was a benefit to be that naive. And I think it really helped that I traded currencies and not the S&Ps, because the S&Ps were downstairs, and every now and then I would try to go trade. And similar to my even when I do my videos and when we talk here, I'm always bullish the market. Well, having an opinion like that is a huge mistake when you're day trading on the exchanges like that, because really you should be reacting to the ebbs and flows of the market, which go in any direction, and just adjusting to the paper flow. I mean, I remember one of the new guys going, geez, I kept doing this and that. And the next thing I just kind of looked, and all the customers were buying. So I just bought and it did well. Well, that's really like when I traded the currency, I had no clue about currencies, and I think that really helped. Every now and then I would go down and try to trade the S&Ps, and even as I say it, I would buy them, and if it was a down day, I would just get crushed, or it would start going higher and I'd be like, "Oh, I'll buy one." And of course I'm buying the tops of the markets. So I think it was a benefit that I traded the currencies since I didn't have an opinion on it, and on top of it, that I was so stupid not to recognize the risk, because man, they can really move around. So like the biblical story of the man who was sad and depressed, feeling sorry for himself when he looked and saw a man with no feet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, really, it was right. And I don't know, like I said, I knew I was going home and having dinner. Now, at the time, I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to come back to, like, I was so upset. I just was being hard on myself, but 100%. And I think that helps to give me. I've been super fortunate, and part of it stems back from the trading and having that head start. But I think th- there's always somebody richer. There's always somebody poor. There's always some, like, yeah, you have to recognize how lucky we are. We do this miracle league where they do soccer, but we do baseball, and it's 2 seasons each year, and it's kids anywhere from kids in wheelchairs or just, like, on the spectrum, or all sorts of different things, and they go and we play wiffle ball. I can't tell you, like, in the beginning, I was doing it to kinda give. Now it's, like, out of selfish reasons, recognizing how lucky I am that my son is healthy, and, like, I my heart goes out for these families when I think about I if if my child had some of the difficulties that some of these kids have, and the fears of getting old and passing away, and nobody taking care of your kid the way that you take care of them, and worrying about what's going to happen when they get into the system, and the system just sees them as this, like, I can't imagine how stressful that might be, and it makes me feel unbelievably thankful, just that my son's healthy, and all those things, and hopefully everybody feels that way, especially if you have kids, or about yourself or whomever, about how fortunate we really are, uh, and on a down day to kind of recognize all that stuff. So I mean, I don't know. Forgive me getting corny and not talking about the markets. Maybe it correlated to some of the other stuff, but I don't know. The floor and the experience is, like, it's a hard thing to explain to people, because it's a weird friggin' life. Like, you have all walks of life, and it's like, I gotta imagine it's like being on a sports team, but it's also like being in a fraternity for a job. And then when I say spoiled, it's like, so the bell rings at 7:20. It's very busy for the open, which those of you guys, like it, when you watch the stock market, it's pretty similar. So maybe there's a half hour of being really busy, maybe an hour. and then it really slows down. So once you get good or you've been doing it a while, you trade the open. You trade for a half hour to an hour, and then we would go to casino boats or go out to lunch or drive into Chinatown and go for dim sum. Like you just find things because if you stick around when the markets are slow, you're only going to get yourself into trouble. So here I am in my young 20s. I work for about an hour on the open. I run around town with a bunch of other 20 something year olds. And then we come back for the last half hour because that gets busy too. And I'm making more money than I could have made at a job. Like it doesn't even make sense when I think back about it, which is also part of the reason it probably doesn't exist anymore. And where I think AI is going to do to a lot of jobs where people get quote unquote overpaid for doing jobs that are mental difficult, but no easier than working on a construction site, hauling and pushing and whatever else that's very physical. Um, anyway, way off topic. So only an hour left, and it sure doesn't look like I'm going to win my bet. It looks like the market's selling off a little. So let me take a look and see if anything's moving around a bit. Any ideas? I mean, I'm really shocked to see Amazon down to 225 a share. That seems pretty cheap to me. But Lance sent me a question the other day on one of the videos, and it's kind of why I'm hesitant to give an opinion. What's tough for me is I think we have a correction coming, and I've talked about. I thought it would be 2 years out. It makes it very tough anytime there's a pullback, because since in the back of my head I think there's a correction coming, I start to wonder if Jesus, this really it. Um, I think that we're just in a scare right now. It looks like Meta's back up to 600, and I think Meta's a steal. Like it's very hard for me. Their current PE is like 20, and their forward is even lower than that. The only thing that could hurt it is if the E changes and the earnings drop. So I don't know. We got Target earnings coming out soon. I know you guys know I love Target. Hopefully it doesn't get clobbered and I have to put my head under a table and not show my face again. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I think this is an opportunity, but I guess obviously we'll see. Um, anyway, if anybody wants me to look at anything or has any questions, speak now because I see my ring went off and we redid a vanity that's leaking, and I'm assuming it's the plumber coming to fix it. Um, so thanks for stopping in. I've said in the videos, I really like the live platform, so I plan to do a bunch more. Anyway, forgive that I'm going to run because I can see that somebody's at the front, and I don't think anybody's getting it. Talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.